Hello everyone and welcome back. I am as always Inquisitor Aura and this is How to Roleplay in World of Warcraft, role-playing concepts, and this week we're going to be taking a look at the Shado-Pan. The Pandaren people as a whole tend towards being people focused on harmony and community. The average Pandaren prefers to eat and drink rather than fight. For the most part, though, they are a peaceful, happy people, whether they be from the Wandering Isle or the mainland of Pandaria. However, such a peace does not come for free. There are those amongst them who understand that peace is maintained only under the threat of reprisal upon those who disturb it. These Pandaren are disciplined, stoic, and Pandaria's first line of defense against all who threaten not only the Pandaren, but now all of Azeroth. They are the sword in the shadows. They are the watchers on the wall. They are known as the Shado-Pan. The first thing you must understand if you are planning on role-playing a member of the Shado-Pan is its history, because it was not always the militant force we know it to be now. 10,000 years ago, before the Great Sundering, the Shado-Pan was founded by Emperor Shao, and it consisted of 100 of Pandaria's greatest fighters. This force was established with the sacred duty of restraining, controlling, and defeating the Shah, personifications of the negative emotions that dwell in the hearts of all sentient beings, and to keep them in check so that the Pandaren people could live free and happy lives. In fact, it was mere hours after the last Pandaren emperor himself had defeated his own anger, despair, hatred, fear, and violence that the first Shado-Pan bent the knee and took the sacred oath that all members of the Shado-Pan have taken since. Over the thousands of years the Shado-Pan have been around, they have taken on the weight of many responsibilities, stemming swarms of mantid every 100 years, battling the pyromaniac Yongle, but their roots are in defeating and imprisoning the Shah. All Shado-Pan eventually have to deal with the Shah. And once you have, you are marked by them. The Shah knows you. They know your mind from then on out. This makes it increasingly more difficult to fight them as they learn more and more about you. Thus, older Shado-Pan are grizzled and wizened, having had many encounters with the Shah. They can come off as heartless and devoid of emotion. The next most important thing there is to know about the Shado-Pan is that it is not easy to join them. This is for several reasons. The first is that all potential initiates are gathered once every 7 seasons, when the sacred trees outside of the Shado-Pan monastery grow red blossoms. Then, and only then, do the Shado-Pan even consider taking on new recruits. This time is known as the Trial of Red Blossoms. However, even before the trial, there are tests that Shado-Pan hopefuls must pass. Most aspiring acolytes are chosen by Shado-Pan agents. These special Pandaren, generally children, are given a ring carved from a white tiger's fang and an order: climb Kunlai Summit and present yourself at the monastery. After this has been accomplished, does the Trial of Red Blossoms begin. The trial itself is a grueling series of tests set before all aspiring Shado-Pan. It is a gauntlet of pain and rigor, and kills most who submit to it and tortures those who remain. The trial consists of 3 tests: the test of resolve, the test of strength, and the test of spirit. Each of these tests holds death for those unfit to serve the Shado-Pan, and aspiring initiates are given one last chance to go home and never to return to save their lives. Some take it, some do not. Those aspiring initiates who are unwavered by this threat begin the first test, the test of resolve, which is proctored by Yalia Sage Whisper. During this test, 6 and only 6 coins marked with the face of Xuen the White Tiger are buried at the bottom of a pile of burning coals in a brazier on a raised island in the middle of a nearly frozen lake on monastery grounds. The initiates are then made to cross the lake however they can, climb the island, and stick their hands into the burning coals. They must snatch a white-hot coin from the coals, often earning themselves a scarred palm in the process, and return it to Yalia Sage Whisper in the grove outside of the lake. Those 6 or fewer who pass this test are immediately taken to the test of strength, which is proctored by Juan Snowdrift. The test of strength seems pretty straightforward. There are 3 large bells housed within the monastery. Each bell must be rung, and in order for it to be rung, it must be lifted. Once all 3 bells have sung, the test is over, and all who remain pass. However, each bell is extraordinarily heavy, and each one hides a different type of death. The death that steals, the death that hides, and the death that saves. The death that steals is a monstrously large Krasarang bamboo python. It is revealed to you by Master Snowdrift, and you and your fellow initiates must defeat it. It is poisonous, and it is a constrictor. If it touches you, you will die. The death that hides is something far more sinister than a snake. It is, in fact, a tiger that also must be defeated. Given that most aspiring initiates are cold, hungry, tired, and freshly scarred from the coin, this is no easy task. The death that saves is a pile of weapons. The problem is you don't know where the tiger or the weapons are underneath the bells. If you have managed to survive this, you are immediately taken to the Test of Spirit, which is proctored by Hawkmaster Nurong. It is unknown exactly what the Test of Spirit is. It is likely different for each initiate. During a recent cycle of recruitment, the Mantid managed to sneak a Shah-infested tiger into the monastery in hopes that the fear of the budding initiates would cause it to grow into a full-fledged Shah and kill them, which would allow then the Shah to grow into its own power and continue killing the Shado-Pan inside the walls of their own monastery. It was stopped, and Hawkmaster Nurong decided that fighting a Shah was more than enough of the Test of Spirit. Of this particular group of aspiring initiates, 3 survived. There had been 10 invited. This should give you a very good idea of just how dangerous these tests are. Only 1/3 of them made it through, and at least 1 was killed in the process. After the trial is passed, the hopeful becomes an initiate. This training lasts as long as it needs to, but generally ends with the onset of adulthood. Over the course of their training, they are taught the Shado-Pan's history, military tactics, and mental discipline. A large part of the Shado-Pan's training is in keeping a clear mind free of excessive emotion. This leaves many of the Shado-Pan to be viewed as hardened and stoic, but it is for a very good reason. The Shado-Pan are taught to suppress and control all of their negative emotions. A Shado-Pan does not fight out of anger. They fight to defend and preserve. This may make them seem cold and calculating, but it keeps them safe, for anger is corrosive, weakening the mental faculties and tricking the mind into irrationally violent behavior. The Shado-Pan does not fight out of hatred, nor do they dwell on past grievances. The Pandaren have a saying, "Forget injuries, but never forget kindnesses." While the Shado-Pan have many enemies, they understand that they are simply threats. They do not hate the Mogu, or the Mantid, or the Yongol, or even the Shah. To hate is to forever submit to these evils. The Shado-Pan do not question their lifestyle is harsh and Spartan out of necessity. They understand their duty is to Pandaria. When a member of the Shado-Pan is given a task, they undertake it without questioning if they will succeed. To linger on the possibility of failure is doubt, and lack of conviction leaves the mind open to the Shah. The Shado-Pan do not worry about friends and family in conflict. While that may seem like a harsh way to live life, despairing at the loss of a loved one often leads to other, darker emotions such as hatred and doubt. The Shado-Pan respect their comrades and love their families, but they know they cannot afford to be overcome by despair if they die. The Shado-Pan are warriors without compare, but their first reaction is not fighting. They fight the Mantid only when they swarm out from the Dread Wastes. They battle the Yongle only when they threaten Pandaren villages and lives. This doesn't mean the Shado-Pan are unwilling to preemptively strike, but they will consider other options before resorting to violence. The Shado-Pan also have much to be proud of. They have a long history of honorable service. They are an elite force, but not some backwater militia with highly specialized training. Few on Pandaria can match them in battle. Few on Azeroth can match them in battle, but on their shoulders lies a very heavy burden. They suffer a cold, militant life so that the Pandaren as a whole can live lives of peace and happiness. Thus, they are taught to temper their pride with humility, to view their vocation and sacrifice humbly. They are trained to reject pride in the face of all of their proudest accomplishments. And finally, and above all, the Shado-Pan fight without fear, for fear is the mind killer. Fear can paralyze, destroying the will and the drive to protect. The Shado-Pan are not foolish. They will not face overwhelming odds, but this is out of logic, not fear. Now that we've looked at the origins and training of the Shado-Pan, we can take a look at their organization. Sitting at the helm is Terran Zu, Lord of the Shado-Pan. Where once he was a xenophobic leader, he has over the years learned to trust the other races of Azeroth. Currently, he can be found between the Shado-Pan Monastery and the Wandering Isle, assisting the Monk Grand Master. From here, the Shado-Pan is divided into 3 distinct divisions. The first is the Black Guard. The Black Guard are the quintessential Shado-Pan, warriors and monks that serve as the frontline fighters when the order is called to battle. These are the most combat-oriented of the Shado-Pan, relying on force, and these are the ones you usually see patrolling the wall. They are led by Juan Snowdrift. Perhaps just as iconic as the Black Guard are the Wu Cow. Where the Black Guard are the watchers on the wall, the Wu Cow are the sword in the shadows. They serve as the Order's spies and assassins, rangers and scouts. They focus on stealth, speed, cunning, and ranged attacks, and are led by Hawkmaster Nurong. And lastly are the enigmatic Omnia. They are the least known branch of the Shado-Pan, and unlike the Blackguard and the Wu Cow, the Omnia are the mystics and spellweavers who preserve the ancient knowledge and maintain the records, wisdom, and traditions of the Order. Counted amongst their ranks are the healers, mages, and other supporting classes, and they are led by Yalia Sagewhisper. If you have managed to stick with me through all of that, now we get into the fun stuff. How to roleplay as a member of the Shado-Pan. Now, a lot of the guides you're going to see out there right now are going to tell you that the Shado-Pan do not leave Pandaria, and this is simply no longer the case. Given recent events, the Shado-Pan can no longer simply sit back and worry about Pandaria. With the Mantid threat effectively neutralized, the Yongle safe in Townlong Steppes, and the Legion attempting to burn our world to ashes, the Shado-Pan have begun leaving Pandaria. You can see several of their key members out in the world. For instance, as I mentioned before, Terran Zu can be found on the Wandering Isle, assisting the Monk Grandmaster. His right hand, Taoshi, assists the Shadowblade from within the halls of Dalaran, and Yalia Sagewhisper serves the High Priest in Netherlight Temple. Something that's very important to mention, and it needs to be said because it needs to be said, is that all of the Shado-Pan is overwhelmingly Pandarans from the mainland. Because initiates are selected when they are young, around 11 to 16 is generally good average age to start with, and initiates are only accepted once every 7 years, and the Trial of Red Blossoms being as grueling as it is, it would have been impossible for any non-Pandaran to have joined. Isle Pandaran would have had to have emigrated back to the mainland and settled with whatever children they had for them to have been accepted. However, given the Shado-Pan's recently dwindled numbers, they might be willing to take on adults at this point. That being said, there was likely only one trial in recent history during Warlords of Draenor in which we were all on another planet, which lends to the mainland Pandaran only train of thought. Any Pandaran selected during that last trial would technically still be in training. For those of you who are already Shado-Pan, you have to keep in mind that the Shado-Pan are notoriously even-tempered. They do not rile easily, and they are not particularly quick to anger. They are also not fighty. Keep this in mind when interacting with others, and remember, the Shado-Pan try peaceful resolution before resorting to violence. Because if they have to resort to violence, they're going to be quick about it, and there's not a lot that another person is going to be able to do about it. The Shado-Pan are very good at what they do. The Shado-Pan are undoubtedly some of the best fighters on Azeroth. While possessed of nearly unparalleled fighting skill, they are also extremely guarded and stoic, a direct result of their considerable training. To be Shado-Pan is to sacrifice a life of joy and peace for one of meditation and war. It is to be under constant threat. It takes a special breed of Pandaran to become its elite fighting force. Well, that is going to be it from me for this week. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember, if you like what you see and you want to see more, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to comment below, and don't forget to subscribe. I also have a Patreon. The link is in the description box below, as well as up in my channel header art. So if you want to help me improve my video quality, make sure you stop on by and donate. Remember, your donations go directly to things to improve the quality of my videos and may lead to more videos per week. Anyways, guys, thank you again so much for watching. Have a great week, have a great weekend, and I will see you again in Azeroth.